Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. I'm Beth. Today we are going to set up my reading journal for January of 2024. We're going to reveal our first Grimm fairy tale read along, and I'm also going to show you what my new first lines journal looks like. Let's go ahead and get started. First things first, my reading journal. If you have not watched the setup for this reading journal, I'll make sure to link that down below. The playlist for all of my reading journals lives in one playlist, so if you ever want to go back and look at 21, 22, 23, you can find all of them there. This is an Archer and Olive notebook. It's a traveler size. My first reading journal was in an A5. The last two have been in a traveler size. It really works for me. And we set this up with a Grimm fairy tale theme because that is what we're going to be doing. It's a read along with Dots and Beyond. I won't commit to a full-blown book club, but we can do some short stories. And we're ready to set up for January. I put a poll up on my community tab about whether you wanted to read some good old fairy tales that you think you know or you think you might know. You might not know anything about them once we get into this. And you guys pretty overwhelmingly are telling me you want a combination of the both. You want a combination of reading the Grimm's fairy tales that have been adapted multiple times, like Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and Snow White and all of those, as well as some of the more obscure ones that maybe you've never heard before. I had already picked January because I needed to plan it. I needed to get ahead of it. And January, we're going with Sleeping Beauty. I've designed this in Canva using their AI the same way that I did these here in the front, and this is how my Sleeping Beauty one came out. We are going to nod to the fact that Sleeping Beauty named Briar Rose in the Grimm fairy tale version. I am going to do what I did in the front of the journal. Let's wallpaper this whole page with this washi tape, and I'm going to use this rose washi tape to do that. Now, while I do that, let's learn a little bit about the origins of Sleeping Beauty. The earliest known version can be traced back to ancient Greece. The myth of Cupid and Psyche, recounted in Apuleius' The Golden Ass, what a great name, shares striking similarities. In this myth, Psyche, a mortal woman, falls into a deep sleep, much like the slumber that later befalls our Sleeping Beauty. However, the parallels are not direct, and the evolution of the story took a more distinct turn in later centuries. The tale we commonly recognize as Sleeping Beauty gained prominence in 17th century France. The French author Charles Perrault, known for his contributions to fairy tales, penned La Belle à Bois dormant, The Beauty Sleeping in the Wood, in 1697. I'm trying to make sure these end up not immediately stacked on top of one another in the same pattern. Perrault's version introduces the elements that have become synonymous with this story: the curse by a wicked fairy, the 100-year sleep, and the awakening by true love's kiss. Around the same time, the Italian poet Giambattista Basile created a similar narrative in his work Sun, Moon, and Talia, part of his collection The Tale of Tales. This tale shares core elements with Perrault's version but has a darker tone, involving not only a curse but also a sexual encounter that leads to the birth of twins. The brothers Grimm, Jacob and Wilhelm, added their own variation to the mix in the 19th century with Little Briar Rose in their collection of German folk tales. While they retained some elements from Perrault's version, their rendition incorporated distinctive Germanic elements. These various renditions, shaped by different cultural contexts and storytellers, contributed to the rich tapestry of Sleeping Beauty's story. From ancient Greece to medieval Italy and 17th century France, the tale underwent transformations, adaptations, and embellishments, ultimately becoming a timeless classic that continues to captivate audiences today. I have had Sleeping Beauty on the brain ever since I read Alexi Harrow's A Spindle Splintered, because the opening to this novella of Fractured Fables series is hysterical. It says, Sleeping Beauty is pretty much the worst fairy tale any way you slice it. It's aimless and amoral and chauvinistic as shit. It's the fairy tale that feminist scholars cite when they want to talk about women's passivity in historical narratives. She literally sleeps through her own climax, as my favorite gender studies professor used to say. Double entendre fully intended. I just thought that was the funniest opening to a story that was supposed to be telling the tale of Sleeping Beauty as could possibly exist. Alright, we are going to go ahead now that we have got this wallpapered and stick in our Sleeping Beauty image. Then I've changed things up on my dashboard to not only track whether I'm reading every day, but also track what I'm reading on each day and which day I start things and which day I finish things. We're going to stick Sleeping Beauty in there. This washi tape's a little older. It is from the Washi Tape shop. It's having a moment. Doesn't want to stick. Use your washi tape, people. Use your washi tape. We're gonna grab our header. I made a matching January header to go with these headers. I haven't done the rest of the months yet. We're gonna go ahead and stick that on there. This tea-stained paper that I used to make these headers is very delicate. This is paper that when you go shopping, most stores will wrap anything that you purchased that is fragile in this thin paper. I love to make tea-stained paper out of it because you see I've put a lot of stuff here in this journal. It's gonna bulk up. The tea-stained paper is much thinner than everything else. I do have to be a little careful with it when I'm putting glue tape on the back of it, but I love it. That's where it comes from. TJ Maxx, the at-home store, HomeGoods, even my local thrift stores use it. That's where this particular paper comes from. And then because I still have plenty of gold keys, if you watched my setup, we've been using lots of these gold keys in various setups. And I'm going to use one of these keys. I thought I had one that looked like it had a crown on it, but I'm not going to dig for it. We're just going to grab one and use it. And then because we have this dusty rose color going in this washi tape design, I went looking for a dusty rose marker and I came up with this Ohuhu one, which is 110. I'm going to use it for my line work on here because it has the dual end. So it has the brush tip and then it also has the fine tip, and we're going to use the fine tip and do some rulering on this page. I'm doing a mini calendar for the month that is a little bigger than just the dotted one that I used to use, or I have been using for this year. Cannot find my ruler. Eureka. Found one. I have like 6 of them. I should be able to find a ruler. The reason that I am changing this up is so that I can write on the calendar, at least in some sort of abbreviated form, what books I'm reading on which day, or at least the dates that I started them. We will see if that's going to work. I don't know. We might change it come February. You'll notice I did away with the stencil and writing in chapter 1, chapter 2. Chapter 1 was January and chapter 2 was February. I just didn't want to deal with a stencil this year. We're just going to stick with a printable each month and then making our calendar. And then we will do our reviews from there. And I am probably changing them up a little as well. I haven't fully decided how that's going to look. They'll still predominantly be the single spread, but I think I want to add a little bit more information, like adding year published. I didn't originally have that at the beginning of 2023 or in 2022 to each of the works. And they might want to add in the origin country of the author or authors to that as well. I don't know. We'll have to see how that turns out. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm realizing that I probably intended to use stamps here for my Monday through Sunday headers. And I'm tired of having those stamps out. I've used them in so many setups, but they would be consistent with the January. They would match. I don't know if that's important or not right now. I don't know if y'all can tell. Occasionally I do still sniff. I've still got some illness hanging with me. We will list what I am reading, and that'll lighten up a little bit when I erase. And here, I'm going to go ahead and write January in cursive, even though I have it right here on this other page, just to have it. And I'm not going to get the stamps out. I'm just going to go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That makes her 1, 8, 15, 22, 29, 30, 31, yeah. I'm going to color in here for the part of the month that is in February, and the part of this block anyway. We just have the January calendar, and I guess I'm going to number it. I was thinking maybe I wouldn't number it, but I'm going to number it. If it's in this light pink, I can write over it if need be. I am going to put a gold dot using a dot marker. This one's a Shuttle Art dot marker that I got off Amazon, just to give us a little bit of gold on this page. Other thing that I'm going to do here with a gel pen is I am going to write in how many words each one of the short stories has. Sleeping Beauty has 1,374 words. I'm just going to write that right here in the middle of our picture. Now, speaking of word count, Goodreads has 196 stories and books tagged as Sleeping Beauty retellings. So Spindle Splintered clearly is not alone. I mean, I think I knew that. I just didn't expect there to be 196 of them. So when you're thinking about those retellings and the number of times that Sleeping Beauty or a version of Sleeping Beauty was told with the Greeks and the French and the Italians and then the Germans, if you think you know Sleeping Beauty, just know that as you go into this, at least in the Grimm version fairy tale, there is a prophetic frog. There are 13 wise women. We think of the 3 little fairies and then Maleficent from the Disney version. There are 13 wise women, and then she is named Briar Rose, not Aurora, in that version at all. We are set up and ready to go. I will start keeping my book reviews and what I am reading immediately on the page following. One of the things we did not talk about when I set up this journal is where my diary of first lines was going to go. In my current reading journal, I am keeping a catalog of first lines of everything that I read here in the back. 2 things I discovered. One was that it was taking up enough space that it was really limiting how much space I was going to have left in my journal to get through the entire year. And the second thing that I discovered is that I'm so enamored with first lines, the first words that a storyteller gives its audience, that I really want to keep them all in a singular location. That stencil keeps trying to escape. So I decided to set up a different journal for my first lines archive. For that archive, I am using this gorgeous Archer and Olive journal that came in the September 2023 subscription box, which is a vintage library theme. I have decided that I am going to set up a cover page for each year, and then once it gets full, I'll move into another one for those first lines. I did give myself just a little bit of a printable here at the front. It says a journal of first lines. I don't anticipate this is ever going to leave the house, so I haven't put my name in here. The quote on the left says there's only one way to run away from your own story, and that's to sneak into someone else's. And that's by Alex E. Harrow in 10,000 Doors of January, which is my personal planner theme for 2023. It's all just tying in together. Then I printed another one of these images of the house. Here, I just didn't put it in an oval, and I used the same wallpaper to keep it consistent so that what's in my first lines journal matches what's in my reading journal for the year. I will immediately start recording first lines based on what I'm reading when I come into January. And then, of course, I will be reading my Grimm's Fairy Tales from this big Grimm's Fairy Tales book that I've had for eons. Honestly, feels like I've had it forever. Sleeping Beauty lives back here near the back. Here's our hag that does the cursing. It's super short. It's 1,300 words and change. This is as far as it goes. With illustrations, you're looking at 2.5 pages, and I will link where you can read this online. I'll also link to Amazon or somewhere where you can pick up your own copy of Grimm's Fairy Tales if you would like to do so. The only thing we have left to do is for me to notate on our 12 stories card that our story for January is Sleeping Beauty. I think I'm going to use that same pink. Maybe I'll have a signature color for each month. I don't know. We're flying by the seat of our pants here. I didn't plan this, but we're going to go ahead and put in Sleeping Beauty. We will do some researching, and when it comes time to February, we're going to jump from something that's a little more well-known to one of the other stories that hasn't been adapted 5,000 times. That is it for my reading journal setup for January. Super quick video. I'm super glad you're here. A lot of you are very excited for the Grimm Fairy Tale read-along. And we might even get to the point where we read them on camera. Let me know if you would like me to read the stories aloud on camera. We can definitely do that. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one.